5, 4, 3.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider Sports Talk 1050 WTKA online at WTKA.com. Sam Webb, Mr. Ira Weintraub on the other side, and the MGoBlog Roundtable crew for the MGoBlog Roundtable Hour Sans Mr. MGoBlog himself, Brian Cook, this morning because he was taken out by ice apocalypse, or I should say his power. Let me be clear. His power was knocked out by the ice storm that fell upon Ann Arbor and Washtenaw County last night. So no Brian Cook today, but his partners are with us this morning, starting off with Mr. Seth Fisher. Seth, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Smartly, last night I went out and shoveled my driveway of all that slush that was on it. So I'm the only one who doesn't have 2 inches thick of ice out there right now.
All right, so you got kids ice skating through the neighborhood then probably today.
They really are. There's a hill. We live kind of on a hill, so they're using the street not very wisely because it's 9 in the morning on a work day, but they're using the street as they're sliding down their butts. It's cute.
All right, and of course, Mr. Craig Ross. Craig, how are you?
Also known as the agent for J. Fred Muggs. He's available for parties of various sorts. Just contact me. I can probably find J. Fred. I read today that Andrew Luck just signed with the Jets. Is this a joke? Have you heard this?
Andrew Luck as a player?
Yeah.
That as a coach? I hadn't seen that.
I would have thought this was a April Fool's thing. I was waiting to see Willie Heston just signed with someone, but but I got a note saying that Andrew Luck just signed with the Jets, so I don't know.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that one. I know
it's not in the newswire right now.
It's not in the newswire. Someone's just jerking me around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're trying for Aaron Rodgers, man. There's a huge push to get Aaron to be interesting. I want to see it just to see him deal with the New York media. I mean,
my goodness,
that would be worth the price of admission. But guys, let's rewind the tape a bit to last weekend. The atmosphere inside Chrysler was different, and rightfully so, as it was the only time in my experience in the Michigan State rivalry where you could truly say, it wasn't about the game, it wasn't about the rivalry, it was about both programs kind of taking note, and the fans really realizing that there's something bigger than the game at play last weekend. I thought that atmosphere that was set, that tone that was set by Michigan was outstanding, and Tom Izzo has been meeting the moment in a leadership perspective. I just thought it struck a lot of appropriate notes last week, Seth.
Yeah, sports is always trying to figure out its spot in these in these moments because, what happens and then how do people react, and then we get into the question of what public policy should follow this, and that how far can sports go to say what they want to say, and what's its role, because it's really just kind of a fun thing that we're doing, right? We're going out and playing, and can it be a break? Is a break good? Bringing people together, but the tenor of this rivalry has gotten worse in the last maybe 10 years. It got a lot worse than it's ever been, I think, before. Maybe back in Craig time it was different, and I think it was good to see that despite the tenor online, that the real feelings came out. And the real feelings, my favorite sign I think I've seen in Chrysler in years is the guy holding who crossed out little and wrote "Love you, brother," because the whole little brother thing is taken as as nasty. It's they take it personally, and I love it as a rivalry rib, and I love you get into it, we love ribbing each other because we're brothers. But when you attack my brother, that's personal. And I think to Michigan fans, and I talked to students in Greg Dooley's class when I went and got to speak there last week, right after a couple of days after it happened, and they were all shocked by it too. They all know somebody at Michigan State. And I grew up around, my father went to Michigan State, my brother went to Michigan State, two of my brother and sister-in-law went to Michigan State. Like everyone around, that's why I talked Michigan so much with you guys. It's like I got to go blog because everyone around me was a Spartan, and I was like, I need someone to talk Michigan with, and all my friends split to the Four Winds. But this happened in the house, and Michigan, I thought, met the moment. And I know I'm going long here, but there was an interesting point that the announcers made, which is one of the reasons Michigan maybe was so good at meeting the moment. Because it's not the first time this season that Michigan played a basketball team after there'd been a shooting on their campus.
Yeah, you're
so,
right. Yeah,
we're getting too good at this.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Good,
Craig, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, talking about Michigan State, back in the 1960s, before you guys were born, Michigan State played a big football game against Notre Dame. They were the top two teams in the country, and it ended up with a tie. And I wasn't in college yet, but in Lorain, Ohio, around a bunch of Michigan fans, we were all rooting for Michigan State in that game. It wasn't even a question. And when I came to Ann Arbor, I occasionally went to games in East Lansing, and I found it to be an incredibly collegial and welcoming and warm place. I mean, there wasn't any real Michigan hostility. Yeah, they wanted to win if they were playing us, and we wanted to win when we were playing them, but I didn't sense any real problems. I mean, it was like now going to Purdue or Iowa, places where people are reasonably welcoming. Penn State is different. Penn State, they have this affirmative sort of action program towards being friendly. I mean, their whole point is to be as friendly as possible to visiting teams, and I give them credit for that.
Yeah,
and
Penn State, Nebraska.
And
Nebraska's number one, I would say. Then
Yeah.
Penn State, then Notre Dame.
Yeah, and Notre Dame is the same. But something went wrong vis-a-vis Michigan and Michigan State. I tell a story about the last time I was there. I was there with a guy, John Fisher, who's a relatively famous local tennis pro, and taught some really fine players, excluding me. I was hopeless, and so we're walking back from a game back out at East Lansing, in a game where Michigan State had won. We're not bothering anybody. We have Michigan stuff on. We're walking, and John is on a cane because he had diabetes. He's gone now, and had lost the lower part of his leg. And we had people throwing full beer bottles at us. Yeah, after a game they won, and I don't understand, where this came from.
I know, and like I said, the tenor of the rivalry, especially on message boards and whatnot, has gotten out of hand. Yeah. That's not going to be fixed or changed by
one game.
And it should not be. Those things are not really relative. What I was saying is the real feelings came out. That honestly, for all the. There's a couple of beer can throwing guys and whatnot, and there are those of us who lob insults online. But really, we live with each other, right? Michigan fans and Michigan State fans have been next to each other forever. We've gone to each other's graduations. I've gone to a graduation at Breslin. It's part of our lives, and I think Michigan people, and I say this to my kids all the time. You are responsible for you, right? Your behavior is on you. So what they act like is not something we have any control over.
Yeah, so a couple things I want you guys to, because you said something a minute ago, Seth, where it was different from the tone online, and I guess I didn't know. What I noticed, at least on my message board last week, was that people kind of putting that to the side, realizing that there's something more important, that the rivalry is trivial. And I tell, by comparison, I say all the time, I go back and forth with Michigan State, but I don't hate Michigan State. I don't hate anyone at Michigan State. That's for me, it's a sports hate. Sports hate is different than real hate. To your point, though, Seth, I do think there are a lot of people, and maybe on both sides, who have real hatred I don't know where that comes from.
Sure,
I don't know when
sure.
that kind of changed.
Sure, and I think the point is that they're not going to change, and the tenor's not going, and that like the stuff is not going to change because of this, and like a shooter killing people on Michigan State's campus should not be anything related to like how you treat people, in a rivalry. Those are not really related things, and I don't want to sound like that. What I'm saying is that the real feelings between these fan bases are the same regardless of that. That you're talking about a segment of the fan base, or like, sometimes people act out differently than their true nature online. We've seen that happen before, right? But like this showed how it really is. That's all I'm saying. That like
I got you.
underlaying all of that, okay? That if something happens to Michigan State, Michigan fans feel like it happened to us, not like it happened if it happened to Purdue. I don't think you would have the same reaction,
Right?
And when it happened in Virginia, we were empathetic and we tried to do what we could, but like there wasn't this feeling like this was an attack inside the house. This felt like an attack inside the house to Michigan fans in general. I know that not everyone feels the same way, and I think that came out, and I don't really think it needs to relate to how people react on message boards or how fans act to each other and stuff like that. It's more about, there's not a lot of opportunities for us to show this, and this was an opportunity to kind of show how we really feel.
Yeah, guy says, Ron Betty says on Facebook, I like both schools until the D'Antonio era. Is that when it's, because you said in the last decade, I guess,
Yeah.
When did it switch? And people were giving that guy flack for his sign.
I don't know, man. Yeah, that's what I've heard.
I thought it was a great sign. I thought it was a great sign.
I thought it was a great sign. I'm actually, I don't want to hurt myself here, but I wanted to like make a T-shirt out of it, and I was going to try to talk to the guy. But I mean, the rivalry has been like that at least since I was in college. I went to the '99 Michigan State game, the one with Tom Brady almost brought us back after Henson was no good, and they had to use David Terrell as a cornerback. You remember that one?
I do.
Stop Plaxico. So I was sitting in the student section. I was a student. My brother was a freshman at State, so I went and sat with him in the student section of Michigan State, and they were giving me a really hard time. Someone grabbed my hat and threw it over the side of the building. Like it was rough, and I wasn't prepared for that because I'd gone to Michigan State games a couple times growing up, and sat with alumni and rooted for Michigan, and my dad rooted for Michigan even though he went to State. There was like not a thing, but it was definitely a thing in there. It's just, I don't know. I don't think today needs to be a talk about the tenor of the rivalry between Michigan and Michigan State. Like I said, is not important. What's important is the real feelings, and the real feelings are what we showed.
Well, hopefully, folks, and maybe it's being naive or Pollyanna-ish, hopefully this helped bring some perspective. At the end of the day, I mean, it's a game, man. The rivalry is supposed to be fun. The back and forth is supposed to be fun. I understand not everyone takes it just in fun. Hopefully, more can have some perspective, though, on about what it really is when you're rooting for a team or rooting against another. It's not you really, really hate them. I don't know how you hate someone over, over a sport. But anyway, there was a game that was played.
Yeah,
guys, and we could talk about Doug McDaniel, how he started the game. We can talk about the clutch shots that, Kobe, very efficient. He seems to be settling into that role. Like he's comfortable with the ball in his hands in clutch situations or in the shot clock situations, right? But to me, biggest storyline out of that game for Michigan, other than they actually closed one out, was Terrace Reed.
Yeah.
Terrace Reed. I call it the Terrace Reed game, fellas. And if I'm Michigan, I'm coming out of that contest saying my best lineup is my two big lineup. Am I overstating things?
No, it is their best lineup, and it became apparent in that game that it is. The only issue is, and some people have minimized this, and maybe they're right, is that if you get into any kind of foul trouble with your front court early, now you have no backup center. And I mean, and that poses some problem. And now some people have said, well, so what? You just got to go that way, go with your best team. And maybe they're right. I don't know. The big Well, the one thing about Tom Izzo that I agree with on this game, I hardly ever agree with a single word he says, is he said that Kobe shot uh, when the game was tied, the three, when he was sort of, seemed a little off balance. And, he called that a quote, 1 in 1,000 shot, I
Give me a
think.
break.
And he was wrong, of course,
Yeah,
because Kobe, if you watch Kobe and you watch Cassie Russell, you're going to see identical shots. And it's a very unusual and bright shot. A, shoots the ball very flat. B, shoots the ball with incredible rotation. And to me, that's how a basketball should be shot. Reasonably flat, incredible rotation. And Kobe, you watch the spin and how tight the spin is when it comes off his hand. It's pristine. And that's how Cassie Russell shot it. And that's why that shot was not 1 in 1,000. That shot was something he's going to make a lot. Because his mechanics are spectacularly good.
Yeah,
And
what give him credit. He made a 1 in 1,000 shot. Basically, why are you giving him credit? You saying he's lucky?
Yeah, right. I mean, it's what Izzo always says.
I mean, every Izzo press conference is why the universe is conspiring against Tom Izzo.
Yeah, I mean, it's what Izzo always says. Give them credit; they were lucky. I mean, okay, that's Izzo.
But I do want to say something, Craig. Craig, you were absolutely wrong about one thing.
What's that?
It was not this game when it became apparent that we needed that Terrace Reed at the 4 was their best lineup.
Well, it was
the Wisconsin game.
Yeah,
because Terence Williams is out, and we're gonna love Shetter. Like he's just such an energy guy. But his limitations when you play him 26 minutes are very apparent. And I don't think that's going to change. I mean, he can get bigger and stronger, but like when he's got an easy dish for a slam and all he can get out of that is get fouled and then he misses the 2 shots, it's like, I mean, Terrace Reed's making the shots, but like to Sam's point there, Terrace Reed gets in foul trouble. He commits a lot of them, and he's just a magnet for him, even if he doesn't commit them. And at Wisconsin, the way they were officiating that game, Michigan was going to get hit by anything that the referees could imagine. That is the worst officiated game I've seen in a decade.
Okay.
As far as just one
side. It was one ref, though.
Yeah. And that guy's always.
It was
and that
Kissinger.
Guy is.
It was Kip Kissinger, who's a stiff.
And with Kip Kissinger, we already know this. When Kip Kissinger is out there, Michigan's not going to get a fair shake.
That's correct.
All right. When that guy's out there, it changes the game. Count 10, 15 points for the other team automatically. That guy that's how he's going to be. But as far as like what decisions you make, you're responsible for you, right? The decisions Michigan makes are if we put Terrace Reed out there against Wisconsin, they're going to foul him out in 30 seconds. So I think that was what the thinking was there. And you go home against Michigan State, rivalry games, they usually swallow the whistles in rivalry games. They usually swallow the whistle in Michigan State games. They usually give you a little more benefit of the doubt in a home game. That is the situation where you can really use Terrace Reed a lot more because his fouling is the problem, right? That's when he gets fouled, you can't really have him on the court. I know he's been making some more foul shots. I think I actually have, just real quick, I think I figured out what they did. I think they had him step back. Watch when he shoots a free throw. I think he's shooting from like a foot behind the line now. And he was shooting too hard before. So maybe that was the answer. They just kind of moved him back a little bit and that solved it. But yeah, that's the Terrace Reed bit.
Yeah, two things on those points. Number one, you're right. Then Terrace seems to be a foul magnet. I mean, even when it's not against Wisconsin, that's why at the halftime of the Michigan State game, it's like, man, it's incumbent that he stay out of foul trouble. Need him to be on the floor. Yeah. Now, at the end of the Wisconsin game, though, we talked about this. Yeah. I mean, at that point, you throw your best lineup out there, and he wasn't on the floor. Now, Juwan talked about it after the game because he left him on the floor against Michigan State. He said it wasn't the first time that I've had him on the floor at the end of the game. So. Maybe that was, I can't remember when it was, but I take him at his word. But it was noteworthy and noticeable, the contrast. Wasn't on the floor at the end of the Wisconsin game, was on the floor at the end of this game, even when Will Cheddar, who had a bad first half, he comes out in the second half, though, and actually has a good second half. So you could see how it might work in his mind. Well, maybe you have Will on the floor At the end, he went with Terrace because Terrace was giving it to you on both ends of the floor, and that is another distinction. It's not just he can finish plays, he's rebounding the basketball, but look at his activity defensively. Not just being able to step out on the perimeter and kind of stay with guys a little bit, but coming over and blocking shots. Craig, it was noticeable.
Yeah, he's going to be a really good player for Michigan. And if he isn't already beginning to get there, in the Michigan State game, I think he had 10 rebounds in 23 minutes. If he plays an ordinary 30 minutes a game, 32 minutes a game, he's going to average over 10 rebounds a game. He's a very instinctive rebounder. He has very good hands. What does he do wrong? He's the anti-Juwan Howard. For those of you that saw Juwan Howard play, you know that he was not a great athlete, but he was technically proficient. And he always he made himself as tall as possible. He was always standing straight up, and the ball was always way over his head. Mm-hmm. So he always seemed even taller than the 6'10" or so that he was. Terrace is the opposite. He gets the ball, he brings it down to his waist, and he ducks his shoulder. He makes himself on the offensive end as small as he can be. And he needs in the next year, this is the number one thing he has to do. He has to work on keeping the ball over his head and making himself tall and not bringing himself down to where people can slap away at the ball. And it should be possible because Juwan was better than any other player I've ever seen at doing that. But Terrace is an incredible athlete with great hands. And, I would love it if Hunter would be coming back next year, because now you would have an easy front court rotation, because regardless of what Brian thinks, Papa Conte can play, and will be able to play early because Papa Conte can D up. I mean, regardless of what his offense is going to look like early, that kid is a defender, and he's got a 7'4" wingspan, and he knows how to play defensively around the basket. So you have a perfect rotation now with those three guys, and it's an old-fashioned rotation because you're going to go too big. And Hunter can play the 4. Mm-hmm. Hunter is fine at the 4. Hunter is right now our best 3-point shooter. I think he's no, yeah. look
on offense he can play the 4. On defense, though, the point is Terrace Reed can play the 4.
That's correct.
And that's correct. What's been really eye-opening this last couple of games.
Yeah, and so it's a perfect rotation if you got one more guy. The problem is Will Cheddar is not that guy. He will be, already is okay on offense, and I think will be a better offensive player as it goes along, but he can't play any defense. He's too small to play against a big guy, and his feet are too slow to play against the smaller guy.
So last one on this to wrap up the discussion and get to a break, because I want to get over to some spring football. Okay. So pretty good bet that Terence Williams is back tonight, right? I don't know what that means in terms of his minutes tonight, but I'm looking at moving forward here down the stretch, however long they play. Depending on how they do down the stretch, I'm curious how
deep
you guys.
In the NIT, Sam. Deep in the NIT.
Well, hey, whatever it is.
No, I'm not there yet. I think they still have a shot.
All right, so however long it is they play, how do you adjust these minutes now? Because to me, I don't want to take away minutes from Terrace. Now, obviously, I mean, you could take away some from Will. Ultimately, maybe you take away some from you have to take away some from T. Will as a result. And I wonder, Ira made this point. It's like, maybe the pressure of expectation is part of what has diminished the returns for Terrace, for T. Will. You look at last year, he shot the ball really well, but with volume and expectation, those numbers have taken a massive dip. If he's not expected to be that guy anymore, maybe his production goes up. And, obviously with the minutes you've been giving Terrace lately, that's been positive. I think you can make a case for don't mess with Terrace's minutes just because T. Will is back. Maybe, take away, diminish Will's role, and then, maybe you push T. Will down a little bit. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Terence Williams' shot, it does not look great. Like, he comes down by his ear, and he shoots like a big, and it takes him a while to get that shot off.
It's
You remember,
slow.
I think he missed his first 17 shots or something like that of his career, to the point where they can sag off of him. I don't think anything's going to change that. He just, he's going to go on streaks. He's a 30% shooter. Sometimes it's going to look like a 25%. Sometimes it's going to look like a 35%. Threes are just weird like that. And even when he was starting, he wasn't getting 75% of minutes. He was getting 65% of minutes. So there's plenty of room, and that's been the problem. They just didn't know who to put in after him. I think now you have Terrace Reed. That's your guy. And I don't know I hope Jet's ankle is fine and that, he'll be able to be full go this time. But I'm almost looking more, I'm not worried about Terence Williams, his minutes and Terrace Reed's minutes, because between playing center and playing 4, you're going to have Terrace Reed on the court at least 50% of the game, and that's probably the sweet spot for him right now, right? Because otherwise he's just going to foul out. And then that leaves plenty of room for Terence Williams. Cheddar, he can be your 8th guy again. That's all he should be right now. I'm more worried about Jet, because did anyone else notice that Michigan won that game after Jet got hurt?
Well, it was tied when he went out. It was 46-46 when he went out, and it stayed tied until Kobe hit his quote 1 in 1,000 shot, and then I think they came down and they hit another 3. I can't recall. I think Hunter hit a 3 and made it. I think 78-70. I think it was 72-72 when the first 3 was made. Then Hunter hit the second 3. There's a minute to go. Michigan's up 6, and that's pretty much it. Do we have to do a break? Because I have
we do. But see, I want to use the break to transition to football. We can finish on this thought.
Okay.
Listen, I guess with if you look at what the way that things have unfolded for Jet this year, he's had some tremendous shooting games. And in those games where he shot the ball really well, a byproduct of that is he has been really, really good getting to the basket too. But on those nights where his jump shot isn't falling, you haven't really seen him do other things. Okay, and my shot's not falling. Let me get to the free throw. Let me get to the bucket. Let me get to the free throw line. He tends to kind of settle for shooting jump shots. What I liked about him in this game was the jump shot was not falling.
Yeah.
And Jet was doing other things. I think to the transition defense he played, he stopped the ball. He picks up, he blocks a shot. We're like, okay, look at Jet play. I mean, it sticks out when you see him playing defense. And then on the other side, he hits the offensive glass, gets a putback and one. So he was doing other things in this game, even when his jump shot wasn't falling. It was not a good shooting night. You hope that that's a sign of things to come, because they need him to do other things. They need him to provide more than just shooting for the team, and he was doing some of that in this contest.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I wanted to bring up. Jet is a remarkable shooter, and unfortunately, he also takes some whoppers. And it's hard to criticize it though, since he's so good at it, right? Sometimes he makes shots where you say, "Oh man, I wish he wasn't taking that one." It goes in, and so he does have a remarkable ability to shoot from distance. However, let's be honest. Aside from that, he's not been a great basketball player. I think Matt D said he's quote unplayable, because if I'm misquoting Matt D, I forgive him.
Yeah,
but,
on zone. I think it was unplayable on zone.
Well, but we shouldn't be playing zone anyway. I don't get that one. But this is a player who really struggles on defense in general, and he doesn't rebound. Doug is a better rebounder than who's a foot shorter is a better rebounder than Jet, and so, but in the Michigan State game, it was like all of a sudden a light bulb went on. It was like, oh, wait a minute. He played some good defense there. He was in position there. He was paying attention. He wasn't like spinning around like a top. And And so it showed that, maybe that's all there, and maybe, he is just a freshman. Now, he ain't going to be here next year from the rumors. The rumors are he's gone, as is Hunter, but that's just rumors. Who knows in the college basketball world these days? But, I felt like you did, Sam, that all of a sudden it was like some things just sort of lit up for him, and he wasn't a liability, even though he had a poor shooting game. And I think even at the beginning of the year, Jawan made some comment about, well, we're just going to have to play Jet because I don't know where our scoring's coming from, right? And he's the guy who can score, and he is a guy who can score. But the rest of his game has been a little tough. One thing about, Seth was right when he talked about Terrace in the Wisconsin game. That was a game we gave up 15 offensive rebounds, at least officially. I think it was a couple more than that. And
to a team that gets like 4 a game.
So yeah, the worst offensive rebounding team. And I went back and looked at it and thought, okay, there was a lot of bricks that ended up in the corner, that weren't really reboundable. But it turns out that was maybe 1 or 2 at most. But when Terrace was in with Hunter, I don't think Wisconsin got a single offensive rebound. And so with that lineup was not giving up anything with Terrace and Hunter during that game. So yeah, Seth's correct. I mean, it became obvious in the Wisconsin game the direction you had to go.
Well,
aside from figuring out how to not have Kip Kissinger reffing our games.
Well, it also became obvious that you talked about the light bulb for Jet. It was clear to me that in practice they looked at the guards and wings especially, and it's like, man, this is some BS. I'm sure that's what it's like. I mean, we just let these dudes rebound all over us like that. And so you saw, I felt like you saw those guys doing a better job of boxing out in this game because this is Michigan State. Every guy is practicing rebounding drills at Michigan State, right?
They were plus 8. They were plus 8 in offensive rebounds in the Michigan State game. And the one thing that Izzo's teams do, aside from clutch and grab, is they rebound. That team goes to the boards, and they always have.
That's why I feel like Jet included. You said it's like a light bulb went on. Yeah. To me, it was they must have browbeat the hell out of them. Like, this is some, and you could kind of hear it. Juwan said in the press conference, "It's unacceptable." And Phil was in the interview yesterday. Yeah, it's like, man, this is weak. That's on me as a coach. That's on Juwan as a coach. That's on all the players. You got to take that personally. The way we played against Wisconsin was unacceptable, and they played like that against Michigan State.
Agreed.
So we need to get to a break though, because we need to transition to spring ball. Some noteworthy things like Omarion Walker, cornerback.
Yeah, you had predicted that, Sam. You had predicted that 2 months ago, I think.
So we'll get to that and much more here on the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, The Ticket.
Clear on the radio.
All right. Yeah. The spring sort of plan is for him to play corner exclusively.
Yeah.
And then, see how it goes. He'll still be able to, he's too fast. He's too freaky to not have some shot plays in for him on offense.
Yeah.
But I think that this whole wide receiver DB thing, the idea behind it is he's going to be a corner. Pick it up.
I recall, maybe not on air, maybe it was during a break 2 months ago where you had predicted that. So you get full marks on that one. And yeah, if he can actually play there, then, and if the kid from Illinois, I've forgotten his name, the freshman.
Jair Hill.
Jair Hill. Yeah, I mean, corner is a place where you can play early. It's not like coming in at offensive line or, other positions.
I've been warning you about this, though. Michigan runs more complicated secondary than almost any team in the country. Yeah. And because they run a lot of different things. And it's not just pattern match. It's not just
Okay.
cover 3. It's not just cover 1. They do a lot of different things back there. They have a whole cover 2 set in there. They'll bring out quarters. They'll do cover 6. So they're running an NFL style secondary. And Jair Hill was a free safety last year. He's behind on cornerback. Now remember Will Johnson, who has played cornerback since he was 3, right?
Yeah.
Like he's gone against everybody. Like anyone who ever came through Detroit, he was on the entire circuit. Like he's played everybody. And Will Johnson needed more than half the season to work his way into the lineup to the point where he was not going to be flubbing things. And when he was on the field, I caught him doing freshman things all the time because it's such it's a complicated defense. Now they could simplify it because, you've got Will Johnson on one side. You could just man those guys up and say, like, okay, if these guys can play man, we got this. But Jair Hill is not going to know even the man technique as well as most cornerbacks coming in.
Yeah, he benefits. And so 2 things. Great point, because that's my biggest question about Jair. The conditioning of Will Johnson for this moment as a freshman has been going on for a long time. Time. Now, Jair's dad is a college football player too, but it's different. It was different for Will because Deion had him out there in middle school against All-American guys.
Yeah.
So
Devin Funchess went against him. Devin Funchess was like, "Hey, I remember that kid going against me." Like, every name that's gone through Detroit, Aaron Burbridge and him used to like go out at each other. And those guys are like 4 or 5 years older than, or more than that. How much older than that?
And then the other thing is, Will is he is a film guy. Like he is, he pours over film like a quarterback.
Yeah.
So, I'm not expecting Jair to be able to
do what Will did. Yeah.
What Will did as a freshman. I think Jair, by the time his career is over, is going to show himself to be a top 50 talent. I just don't think it's going to show up right now. But Omarion Walker is a freaky athlete, and he'll benefit from, at least he got his feet wet in the defense last year. It was a fraction of the defense, to your point, Seth, because, the first game we saw, I was doing a show with Vance. He said,
I'm on radio in about 20 seconds, guys.
He was like, this new defense coordinator is a DB guy. And I said, how'd you know? He said, I can see by their disguise. I can see everything they do in the secondary. I can see by their disguise. He's a DB guy, right? So, you aren't giving all of that to Omarion Walker right now, but he got his feet wet, and now he goes through the full spring. Man, if he can pick it up, guys, he can pick it up. Man.
He did play receiver.
By guys, we're coming back on radio.
He did, but
yeah. Well, I mean, who else do they have?
Back live on radio in 5, 4, 3.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, online at WTKA.com. Sam Webb, Mr. Ira Weintraub on the other side. Hey, if you are in the market for a new vehicle, get on board with Brighton Ford. This is John Cuter and his crew. We'll take great care of you. 8240 West Grand River Avenue in Brighton, Michigan. Online at BrightonFord.com. And give them a call at 1-800-NEW-FORD. You can check out the great deals like the one on the 2022 Ford F-150 Super Crew. Still some left on the lot. $297 a month with $3,500 down, or $503 a month with $500 down. Or how about the 2022 Ford Escape SE all-wheel drive? $179 a month with $3,500 down, or $305 a month with $500 down. And last but not least, the 2023 Ford Edge SEL all-wheel drive, $302 a month with $3,500 down, or $480 a month with $500 down. For those and other great deals, get on board with Brighton Ford. Going to BrightonFord.com, 1-800-NEW-FORD, or make it out to the lot at 8240 West Grand River Avenue in Brighton, Michigan. So Omarion Walker gonna play corner this spring, almost exclusively. I imagine that there'll still be some wide receiver reps here or there, but
Ron Bellamy is not letting him go. Ron Bellamy would would stage a protest if they told him he couldn't have him.
I think he's a team guy. He's a team guy above all. I mean, begrudgingly, is he looking at this move? Sure, but
I mean, he understands. He played a little cornerback in his time too. Remember?
He did.
That 99 game, that 99.
I think Ron even tell you, this guy. From a corner, he went to Alabama's camp, ran some insane 40 in front of Nick Saban, and Nick Saban followed him around the whole camp. and had him work out at DB, and Nick Saban offered him as a corner. And that's when that's when the buzz really took off about Omarion Walker, right? Was when Nick Saban said, hey, and Nick Saban is a defensive guy and he's a DB guy. And he said, I'm offering you 6'4", 175, 180 pounds at the time. I'm offering you as a corner. And so that tells you two things. Number one, this dude is a freaky athlete. And number two, his potential is next level. And the guy that's a comparable talent to me and has a comparable path, I wrote about this, is Tariq Woodland from the Seattle Seahawks. He wound up being a 5th-round pick out of a UTSA.
How did you not say Richard Sherman here?
No, because Richard Sherman was a great all-pro player, no doubt. Richard Sherman can't run like Omarion Walker in his dreams. He can't run like this. He absolutely is not a speed. Tariq Woodland, on the other hand, is a better comparison. Now, Tariq Woodland might not amount to the player over time that Richard Sherman has amounted to. But 5th-round pick out of UTSA, 6'4". At the combine, he was 6'4", like 210. So he started out like 6'4", 180 as a receiver. Redshirts his first year. Moves to corner his redshirt sophomore year. Starts at corner starting in his redshirt junior year, and then becomes an all-conference guy in his final year at UTSA. He, at the combine, at 6'4", 210 pounds, ran a 4.2 640 and a 7.1 shuttle. Now, they had questions about what is that going to be. He's at UTSA, so on and so forth. He goes out and ties for the league lead in interceptions and is an all Ricky team member. That's this kid's ceiling as an athlete. I don't know if he's going to be that even, over time, but I'm telling you, he has that kind of athleticism. It's a spitting image. My biggest question about him is how quickly, now that he gets the full defensive playbook, Seth, because to your point, he got a fraction of it last year. He was a bit player on defense. How fast does he pick it up? And how physical is he on defense? I've seen him play corner and do drills and that kind of thing. I've never seen him make a tackle. So I can't speak to what he's going to be physically. That's what we got to wait to find that out.
Isn't another question of what does Jaden McBurros do in the spring? Because isn't he the other competitor there at that spot? I assume so. I mean, and he's been hurt mostly, by my understanding. So
I like Jaden.
Okay,
I like Jaden. I think you competition, man. I mean, you can't just have. You got to have Omarion Walker.
3 guys. You don't need 2 guys. You need 3 guys out there. And Saber still's got nickel locked down, but like you're going to need. They had a rotation last year, right? They needed Will Johnson last year, especially because they lost Jamon Green for a little bit. You're not going to get through a season with 2 cornerbacks. That does not happen.
Right. Agreed. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So they need Walker, but they need Jair Hill or McBurros to also start to show that they can.
Let me translate a little spring game ease for you. Okay. They need somebody. And that's the thing. They couldn't get was Igbenogson, the end up going to Ohio State. Like, they wanted to get a transfer. They played the portal and they didn't get a guy. They wanted to get one of their guys to return. They lost both of them. So that's a hole. And
so here's the thing, to your point. To address this though, I think even if they had gotten Igbenogson, that Omarion Walker
was going over.
Was going over.
Sure. I don't think we'd be talking about him as the headline of the spring.
Yeah, talking to Clink down in or out in Phoenix. I was asking about, are you going to play the portal? Are you going to play the portal? He said, I mean, we're going to look in the portal. He said, but I feel pretty good about what we have here. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I like Jaden McBurros too, and I think he's a guy that competes at that position. I know he's physical. Like, that's one dude. I know it's going to tackle. I know it's going to be a factor in the run game, right? You want to make sure that he has the discipline in coverage, right? That was kind of the thing about, hey, why isn't he playing more than he played coming off the injury? He was back, but they wanted to make sure he wasn't going to bust. And it's because this was an extremely sound secondary from that standpoint, and they didn't feel like he was ready to not go out there and be sound in the defense. If he can be sound in the defense, he is a major factor at that position. But it can't just be him. Like, who else are you looking at? You got Miles Pollard coming up, but he hasn't played. Where is the confidence coming from? Are you gonna move Mikey Sainristil and have him play some more corner
That makes no
play one of
sense
the
to me.
safeties at nickel? But I think, going back to it, Seth and Craig, I think he was thinking at that time, I'm gonna go get Omarion. I'm gonna go steal Omarion from Rob Bellamy. I think that's what Click was thinking at that time, and he was able to get his man.
This raises a question about wide receiver, of course. I mean, they've got CJ and Roman Wilson to be the sort of staples, and I suspect that it means Henning will have a greater opportunity in the offense. But what about this kid they just gave a scholarship to? Harbaugh or someone called him the next Cooper Kupp last year in the early fall. And they just gave him a scholarship now. And I'm blocking on his name.
Guys get scholarships in the spring all the time. So that's that. Yeah.
Yeah, Sam's rolling his eyes. He doesn't look like.
I mean, what was the BYU quarterback that's it with the Saints? I'm trying to remember the dude's name.
Oh yeah, Taysom Hill.
Taysom Hill, and remember they had Taysom Hill in practice. He said that about one of the I can't remember the backup quarterback who wound up moving on. The kid that got out of New York who transferred, and he was calling him. So I'm not caught up in that. I think that the receiver position, you're feeling like a fifth year Cornelius Johnson, a Roman Wilson that comes back, and I just felt like he is with a veteran JJ McCarthy. I feel like it is time for Roman Wilson to be more of a focal point offensively. I thought he was their best deep threat last year, and he wasn't always the guy going deep, right? I thought early in the season some of those deep shots, it was about who was running the deep, the deep routes. More of those shots to Roman, I think, are in store. So you're expecting him to really step up. I think with AJ Henning, I think it's a wait and see with him. I think he's waiting to see how things go in spring ball to kind of assess where he goes from here. But remember, guys, you got some other young talent at the position. Yeah. I think they're really excited about Darius Clemens. I think they're really excited about Tyler Morris. I mean, you got some other horses in the stable.
Yeah, that's right. And the one thing about CJ is he is phenomenal with the ball in his hands. He is a really good yards after catch guy. And so I'm happy when the ball's getting out to him, because he can break plays. And so yeah, and with Morris and Walker, I guess that there are some bodies there. Someone's got to break through, or Henning.
And Donovan Edwards.
And Donovan
Edwards. Right, you're right, because in the NFL, he's going to be as valuable as a pass catcher as he is a runner. Maybe more valuable.
Oh yeah.
So story I heard,
they're gonna do some
the
stuff.
Story I heard is when word that Blake was coming back, when that was official, I heard immediately Donovan was like, "Hey, I need to get some receiver reps. let me be in the receiver room a little bit. I need to make sure I get my reps up."
My comment then was AJ Henning is more worried than Donovan Edwards. As far as who lost out in that deal, that's an AJ Henning problem.
Yeah, I mean, Donovan has got nothing to worry about vis-a-vis his future NFL prospects, because people are going to see that what he can really do is catch the ball out of the backfield, and that's a skill the NFL wants. I mean, they're less concerned about running backs and more concerned running ability, and more concerned about can you catch the ball.
He should still have a year when he's the star running back, right, Craig? He shouldn't go to the NFL right away. He should spend a year as a star and try to win the Heisman and come back as a senior, just like Blake.
Let me check with Jay Fred on that one.
No, it's some interesting stuff. And so my latest behind the uniform episode we'll release it next week. It'll be with Zach Zenner, and he's like, man, Drake Nugent. He's like, this dude fits right now. Olu is Olu. But so he's not like, it's not like he's sitting there predicting that this dude's gonna come in and be a Remington Award winner. But he said, hey, super strong, a lot of the same characteristics in terms of his tenaciousness, just really making a good impression out the gate on the rest of the guys. They're feeling like they aren't gonna miss a beat.
They could be better. I mean, if Jeffrey Percy can do something in the spring and they can move the kid from Arizona over to right tackle, because that was on the offensive.
Got some good right tackles too, man.
I know we have good right tackles.
What about Miles Hinton?
I'm going to guess he's redshirted.
None of us are believing in Hinton, but
and they're going to try and get him back to where his potential is. And But if you look at this offensive line, the one thing, well, Seth will know more than me, the one thing that seemed problematic was pass pro at right tackle and last year. And I think they might be able to shore that one up.
Trente, let's see how Trente comes back.
And we have Trente. Yeah. I mean, he's
Trente's got the feet for it. He just needs to get some reps.
So this offensive line is, should be great.
We are out of time. Always a spirited discussion. Appreciate you, fellas. We'll pick up this spring conversation again next week. Be sure to join us tomorrow, though, here on the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 WTK, The Ticket, the official voice of University of Michigan Sports, Ann Arbor, a Cumulus station.